Welcome to the Retirement Evolved podcast with certified financial fiduciary Adam Bruno.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode
58.
Man, remember episode 1?
No.
Me either. It's horrible when that happens. I'm having a senior moment. I can't remember episode 1. Okay, so we are here today with our special guest attorney, Courtney Lovejoy. Say hi, Courtney.
Hey, everybody.
So Courtney is awesome. She's actually an attorney that you can talk to, which is why we like our relationships with our attorneys, because, you know, they speak more than just lawyer, which is good. We like that, Courtney. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
All right. So what we want to get into is, you know, we've had a few of these that were really beneficial to our families. And obviously, if you're listening, you know who we are, Evolution Retirement Services, Evolution Wealth Management. You know where to find us, taxfreefortmyers.com. You can call us, email us, stop by the office and say hello. And Lauren will say hello.
Hello.
Hello. Yes. Okay. So, Courtney, if you don't mind, I just wanted to get started. You know, you're an expert in all things that are probate, trust administration. And when you're really explaining this to people, you know, what we like to do is kind of break it down from a 30,000-foot level. So jumping right in, is probate something that tends to confuse a lot of people? Because I know I feel confused. So am I the only one that feels confused? Or
You're not the only one, no. So probate is the court process to get a decedent's probate assets, which I'll explain, into the name of the intended beneficiary. A probate asset is an asset owned by a decedent in their individual name, no surviving joint owner, no surviving beneficiary, and not titled in the name of a trust. So when someone dies with a probate asset, you need a court order, the probate process, to get that asset to the beneficiary.
Okay, and that's probably extremely time-consuming.
does it cost them any money to do that?
That's what I was gonna ask,
How much does it cost for the family to do that?
Attorneys charge in different ways, several $1,000s, I'd say, at
Wow.
least. Some attorneys will charge a percentage,
When they go through probate, that's
Wow.
what they can expect to pay, is
Yep.
somewhere in that range.
but also time-consuming. I'd say 6+ months to get a asset over to the beneficiary. It's
gosh.
time-consuming, so we try to avoid it when we can.
So if there's only $3,000 in probate, that's really just getting eaten up by the attorney fees then. So there's
Right. Oftentimes, yes.
Wow.
And is that where the trust administration comes in, or how does that differ?
A
from
trust is
probate?
one great way to avoid probate if your trust is funded properly. There's other ways to avoid probate, naming beneficiaries on accounts, certain types of deeds like ladybird deeds, we can avoid probate. There's other ways other than a trust, but trust is generally the best way.
So the way that I explain it to families, Kurt and I are heading to Disney tomorrow, which I love because Kurt hates Disney, but his wife and I love Disney. Kelly, I love you, honey, but she's not a big Disney fan. She's like on the fence. So the way that I explain it to families, and I don't know if this is correct or not, when you go to Disney and you do like a lightning lane or a fast pass, you can just walk right on the ride. So I think of like the line itself as the one I don't want to stand in for an hour and a half and waste time with. Is that kind of similar to probate when you set up a trust? Is your trust like kind of like the lightning pass where you don't have to wait in line at the end of the day? Or
It is. You don't need the judge approval, the judge oversight, and it's more private. You don't have your business being public record.
Yeah. Do you got any good stories about families you've worked with that, you know, kind of avoided trusts or avoided probate that, you know, saved them a ton of money? Or do you see that a lot?
So trust planning can also be used for tax purposes, which I know Kevin Kyle touched on a couple months ago.
Right.
I don't do that type of trust planning, but a simple trust, spending an extra $1,000 or $2,000 when you're doing your estate planning to create a trust can save tens of thousands of dollars.
That's
in the
what
long
I was
run.
wondering.
Yeah,
So
so it's a little upfront.
yeah, you're not talking about like a little savings. You're talking about a lot of savings.
Oh,
Yeah.
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 Okay.
I know that your expertise, I don't know if you want to touch on that a little bit, but I know that Medicaid is one of them.
Yes. So I'm an elder law attorney. So I do Medicaid planning and also guardianship, along with estate planning, probate, trust administration. I do long-term care planning. There's different kinds of Medicaid. I do long-term care Medicaid. Do you guys want to hear my Medicaid myths?
Yes,
do.
I want. Yes, exactly.
Tell us.
Yeah, loosen up and tell us for sure. I want to hear that.
I get these questions probably every week. So, number one, people think if I get sick and I have to go to a nursing home, Medicaid's going to take my home. They're going to take all my assets. It's not true. Medicaid doesn't take anything. You're either eligible or you're not. So that's my number one.
Ooh.
Number two, I have to spend all my money to get Medicaid. I have to have nothing in my bank account or practically nothing to get Medicaid. That's not true. We can get sometimes millionaires on Medicaid if it's financially appropriate.
Really?
Wow.
Yep. And then a lot of people think that you can only get Medicaid when you're in a nursing home. That's not true. You can get Medicaid at home and at assisted living as well.
Okay, so question about that. Are there specific like Medicaid facilities? Because some of the things that Lauren and I hear, and maybe this is a myth too, is that some of these facilities you don't want your family to go to, some of these Medicaid facilities.
Yep, that's a good myth. So all of the nursing homes in Lee County, except for one or two, accept Medicaid.
Oh,
Even
okay.
some
Wow.
very, very nice ones, like the swanky one on the way to Sanibel.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah.
Their nursing home
Swanky.
accepts Medicaid.
What is that, Shell Point?
Yep.
Wow.
Shell Point accepts Medicaid, huh?
Their nursing home.
The nursing home section of
Nursing
it.
home.
Yep.
So,
Do you still get to
really
use the
nice
golf
ones, too.
course though if you're on Medicaid?
Oh
Or
my gosh. So, I mean, I'm sure you would say this, but Medicaid planning is probably an extremely important thing. If you, and I don't know how, you qualify for that, but I'm sure that working that in to the process, the estate planning process, all that stuff, is that something that you should be looking at?
Yes. The single most important thing anybody can do to plan for Medicaid is to have a good, durable power of attorney that authorizes Medicaid planning.
So just a question about that. You brought that up, Lauren. It's a good question. And you brought up the myths about eligibility. What are some common things that make you eligible? Like how does that work?
So for long-term Medicaid, there's an income requirement, an asset requirement, and a sick or medical requirement. We can't make people sick, so you either qualify for that or you don't, but generally 24/7 care of a nurse, you meet the medical requirement.
Okay.
Income-wise, the current gross income cap is $2,901 of gross income. If you exceed that, I can fix it if you have a good durable power of attorney. That's easy.
Wow.
Asset-wise, the sick person can have $2,000 of countable assets. The key word there is countable.
Ah, okay.
So there's no hiding, there's no lying with Medicaid. We show them everything we do. We just make the money work within their rules. I liken it to no one wants to pay extra taxes, right?
Right.
Why pay for long-term care if we can get you qualified and the government will pay for it?
Well, that's one of the reasons we don't necessarily like long-term care policies or insurance here because, you've seen it before, right, Courtney? Somebody pays, thousands and thousands of dollars over the course of their life, and then they don't use it possibly, and then the money's gone. And, I've joked about it before, but we've sat in front of families that said, somebody's using it, somebody's going down the stairs. We paid all this time for it, right? It's interesting to hear these qualifications. You said countable. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yep. So right off the bat, your homestead doesn't count and one car doesn't count. But otherwise, everything else that you own counts. Your checking and savings accounts, your brokerage accounts, your IRAs, life insurance policies, they all count. Some quick, easy ways that we make assets not count is IRAs, for example. Everyone is familiar with the required minimum distribution.
Mm-hmm.
There's a similar calculation for Medicaid. We take that RMD, divide it by 12, take it out monthly rather than once a year.
Mm-hmm.
And by doing so, by taking a regular monthly payment, that entire $500,000 IRA, for example, doesn't count toward your asset limit.
Ah, so you're saying taking it out monthly makes it part of your retirement basically, and then the whole amount doesn't count.
It makes it income then,
Yes.
and not an asset.
Ah.
So you can be on Medicaid and keep your
That's so simple. I
substantial
never thought of
IRA.
it that way.
And then there's other rules that we use to make other assets not count too.
So when we talk about, I know that one of the myths that I hear a lot, maybe it's not a myth, is people tend to get irrevocable trusts because it's not inside of their estate then when it's irrevocable. Is that one of the tools that's used to make the money not count?
That's a common tool in other states. You can do that in Florida. I don't do that type of planning because there's other tools that I can use that allows the person to keep their money and still get Medicaid.
And probably even better rules, I would assume. If you get to not have to hire and fire a trustee, that's probably way better than
not having to ask your trustee for some money to go on vacation, for example. So there's better tools available, in my opinion.
I know. Can you elaborate a little bit more on some of those tools?
Sure. So let's make up a hypothetical here. So sick husband, wife. Say they have $500,000 in cash and stocks, bonds in a non-IRA brokerage account.
Mm-hmm. Brokerage account. I love that. Okay.
Yep.
Regular brokerage account.
Yep. So the spouse can have about $157,000. The sick spouse can have $2,000. So we'd move all of the assets to the spouse, the wife. She's still got $500,000. That's too much money. So sometimes what we'll do is we'll do a short-term loan by the spouse, the wife in this scenario, to a trusted person like a child. We loan the overage that she's over that resource allowance of $157,000. We loan that to the child while Medicaid's pending. As soon as Medicaid is approved, Medicaid doesn't care about the spouse anymore. She could win the lottery and have $50 million. So we undo the loan, give it back to the spouse. She's made whole, and he gets Medicaid.
So is there limits on to what that loan could be? Say she had $1 million. Can she loan $900,000 to somebody then, or is there like limits on that?
She sure can. Yep.
And what are the implications? I mean, are there tax implications on that, or?
So when you're loaning cash, that's easy.
Okay.
When you have a brokerage account, for example, we don't want to sell those things because that's a taxable event. So as part of the loan, we'll transfer the stocks, bonds via book entry transfer so that you're not selling things. And then when we're ready to undo the loan, the kid in this scenario gives it right back via book entry transfer. There's no taxable event.
But the kid doesn't have to give it back, right? I mean,
well, that's why we say pick someone you trust.
Pick someone you trust, yeah.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing is there still needs to be documentation tracking the loan, right? So you still have to do like a loan document and stuff like that.
Yep. It's a Medicaid-compliant loan, so it's not just something you get off of
Google. So Medicaid tells you how to make the loan and doesn't even realize that they're...
Exactly.
I love that.
What a great way to just help people. I mean,
yeah,
you really need it.
I mean, but the thing is, you pay into it for your entire life, and then all of a sudden you can't use it, right? That's silly. It's like when we pay into Social Security, and now 2034 comes around, and we don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
You spend all this time paying into it.
Wow.
So
yep,
that's amazing.
Gosh.
Yeah. So, and it depends on income, really, because if I have a sick spouse who has income of $15,000 a month, I'm going to say you don't need Medicaid. Medicaid's not going to give you anything because when you're in a nursing home on Medicaid, you pay as your patient responsibility an amount based on your gross income. So if your income is only $5,000 a month, you're going to pay Shell Point Village nursing home about $5,000. Medicaid picks up the rest of that bill, which at a place like Shell Point, that could be upwards of $18,000 a month.
I wish I could whistle.
No, I can't either. Yeah. I mean,
No, I can't do it.
No.
Man.
I think it's because we're blowing into the microphone and that makes it harder.
Yeah.
So you're telling me that basically anybody that has a $5,000 income, I mean, obviously not anybody, but if you're somebody like that and you always say to yourself, I can't afford Shell Point, if you do some digging, there's a possibility that you might be able to afford a place like Shell Point.
Right. And that's the rule. That's how Medicaid works when you're in a nursing home. It's a little different when you're in assisted living or if you're at home or in independent living.
Let's talk about the difference of the assisted living versus the nursing home.
Yeah. So
is that like home health care?
So when you're in, if you're at home or in independent living, you have caregivers coming in, right? Mm-hmm. You know what the home setting looks like. When you're in assisted living, that's more apartment-like. Mm-hmm. There's a ton of assisted living facilities around here. I'd say depending on the level of care.
Oh, yeah.
Low side, maybe $3,000 a month, upwards of, say, $8,000 a month if you need memory care, like a locked unit. Mm-hmm. It's more comfortable. You have a bedroom or it's a studio. You generally have a little kitchenette. It's more comfortable. When you're in a nursing home, that's essentially a step down from a hospital. You sometimes have a roommate. There's a curtain down the middle of the room. You have a bed, a dresser, a TV, and that's it. No one wants to be in a nursing home generally.
Wow.
But the cost difference is there too. $3,000 to $8,000 for assisted living, $10,000 to $18,000 for a nursing home.
Unbelievable.
So you don't necessarily want to be in the nursing home, or you don't want to be in the assisted living. You want to be in the nursing home. Like, what would you?
Assisted living is more comfortable.
Okay.
No one wants to be in a nursing home, but sometimes that's the only option for our families, because when you're in a nursing home, that's when Medicaid's paying the big bucks, right? When you're in assisted living, the most Medicaid will contribute toward that potentially $8,000 bill is $1,500, $1,600 a month. So sometimes, unfortunately, even though medically they need assisted living, they have to go to a nursing home because they can't afford that $8,000 a month, even with Medicaid contributing $1,500.
So better to go to the assisted living. And you're saying that there's ways that you can still have, the only Medicaid coverage you get is $1,500. So I'm confused. So there's no way to have Medicaid pick up a bigger chunk of that bill.
Not in assisted living.
That's where you have to have the money then.
Yep.
Okay.
Wow. What about this 5-year look back period?
So
What goes on with that?
the 5-year look back period refers to the time you file an application. Medicaid can look back 5 years to see if you've given away your money to get qualified for Medicaid.
But a loan is not considered giving away.
Correct.
Which is why the irrevocable trust, which is, I'm assuming, where you're going next, that's when they do the 5-year look back, is when you set up like a trust like that or something.
That's true. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. So you can't just put all the assets in your son's name and expect to get Medicaid.
And I'm sure a
Doesn't
lot
work
of
like
people
that.
do that.
Yep.
Yep.
Or you could loan it to your son.
Well, that's what Courtney was saying.
You could loan it to us out there if you need to. We're,
Oh my
we'll only charge 10% or something like that, right? Is that-
Don't go making loans. It needs to be in a certain way.
Yes, of course.
Yep.
Yeah, just to be clear, I was joking about that. If you're listening out there, okay, we don't want any part of that. We don't mind helping you plan it, but
Yeah. So there's a penalty period, though, is what I'm understanding about that 5-year look back.
If you have made disqualifying transfers or gifts within that 5 years, there is a penalty period. Oftentimes what we'll do, because almost everyone makes gifts, right?
Right.
$50 to your grandson.
Sure.
$1,000 for someone's graduation, a wedding gift. There's oftentimes gifting within the last 5 years. The easiest way to overcome that is to have someone return the money if it's financially possible. If not possible, we've been successful a lot of times in the past by saying, say there's $12,000 in gifting in the last 5 years. We argue to Medicaid it wasn't done for Medicaid eligibility, and we've gotten accepted for
Okay.
approval.
So really, you gifted one of your kids $10,000 for the down payment of a house. So there's what you're saying is there's ways that the gift is explainable and it's okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So what would so maybe like the loan of a first home or paying for a wedding, or those things are kind of considered okay?
I think what looks fishy is gifting that's done after a diagnosis, or really
that makes sense.
yeah, really soon before a Medicaid application. If you have a history of giving $200 to your grandchild every year, we show that pattern. We argue it wasn't done for Medicaid, and we're generally accepted.
So it should be something you're already doing, basically. It has to be something
we
before.
have an application from a couple years ago, a married couple that was very involved in their church, and over the last 5 years, they had tithed in excess of $200,000. There was no one to return $200,000. So we filed the application and showed the history and said it wasn't done for Medicaid eligibility, and we got approved.
Well, clearly that wouldn't be done for Medicaid eligibility because
Right.
they're just going to leave it to the church then when they pass away anyway. So, I mean, clearly that's not
So if
something
you can
that...
prove the history,
Yeah.
for the most part, it should be something that gets approved.
We've been successful in the past.
That's great.
So painting the corners a little bit, though, like loaning it out would be kind of painting the corners. It's legal, but it's not something that everybody knows about, which is really valuable information.
We love those little tidbits and tools, and speaking of that, Courtney, I know we talked about this a little bit before you came on, but we were talking about a tool, a Medicaid-compliant annuity, and you had mentioned that maybe that's not the best tool, or there's better tools out there.
Right. So some attorneys or non-attorney Medicaid planners will recommend these Medicaid-compliant annuities. I don't recommend them. I think there's better tools available that aren't just getting the broker, insurance agent rich. Like these loans, there's other tools available for single people. I don't like them.
I like that.
It's very easy. Yeah. I don't feel like that when you have other tools, why, obviously, these people are going to collect commissions and commissions on annuity sales are upwards of 7 to 10%. So obviously not using it in the right way, people just don't care. They're like, hey, do one of these. This is great. Right. I'm curious, have you run into any, let's see here. Have you run into any, I'm trying to figure out the way to put this. There are kind of hybrid life insurance products out there that will pay a specific amount for long-term care. And if you don't use it for long-term care, the death benefit is left to your family. And we've been involved with those before. Is there any protection or benefit to having that? Would that make you qualified for Medicare, or would that be an elimination for Medicaid if you have something like that? How does that work?
So the cash surrender value of life insurance counts toward your asset limit.
Okay.
I don't think those things are necessarily bad to have if you're married. If it's in the sick spouse's name,
sure.
And that person then needs Medicaid, we can always transfer it to the well spouse if we need to.
Okay.
I wouldn't say don't get those. We can get Medicaid with them.
Oh, okay. I always looked at it like, we deal with families that have, millions. So I was always concerned that, they have these, and it's a myth, right? You just said it's a myth. Like if they have millions of dollars, they're kind of stuck and they'll lose money. And, but if they don't lose the money, then they're spending their own money for this type of care then. Mm-hmm. So for me, it was like carve out a piece so that you don't have to worry about spending down assets on, and then possibly being eligible for Medicaid. But you're saying that there's better tools out there to prepare than necessarily trusting an insurance company to do it for you.
If you're well enough and can afford long-term care insurance, a good policy, I always say do it. I think that's always number one, but so many people can't.
Well, when we start thinking about it, then our problem that we see is people start thinking about it when they have the wealth, and then it's 3 times the amount it would have been if they did it when they were young.
Yep.
Yeah. Even when you're young now, it's not like it's inexpensive.
Right.
Even if you're in your 40s.
Yeah, it's still going to be a chunk every month.
But compared to what you spend in the long term, my fear is always, what happens if we don't use this thing?
Right.
But
can you always, this is a question for you, Adam. What about a health savings account? Is that something you can possibly convert over time to?
That's a great question. You would think
that towards your long-term care?
Oh, yeah, you can use the health savings account towards what I don't know is if you can use the health savings account towards the premiums of the long-term care coverage. We can find that out.
I don't know. I just thought of it.
Yeah.
And I was like, that'd be something.
If you have a health savings account and you continue to just not use it and let it grow.
Let it roll over.
Yeah. I know there's questions about using that towards Medicare premiums for supplements and advantage plans and things like that. But it's supposed to be derived for your out-of-pocket medical expenses. That's the you want to weigh in on that, Courtney? You want to think about that? Okay. Okay, good.
Sorry, it just
not because it's bad, just because she doesn't have. Yeah, she doesn't want to cover it. Okay, got it. So those are some of the tools that we look at. But what I've found the most beneficial is having somebody like you, having somebody like Kyle, and you know how hard it is to find a firm that you can actually trust, right? Not that I'm saying all lawyers are bad, but there's that old joke. What do you call 1,000 lawyers at the bottom of the sea?
A good start.
That's right. Yeah. So I've never had that experience with you guys at all.
Thank you
part
for
of
being a sport, Courtney.
a trusted. Oh yeah. Well,
I love lawyer jokes.
Yeah. I don't know. That's the only one I know. Because I don't want to go too far out there in case I ever need one. I don't want to put my reputation out there as a guy who makes lawyer jokes.
We don't do any criminal law.
Yeah. Oh, good.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're just assuming it would be criminal law that I need an attorney for. That's pretty.
That.
Probably pretty accurate. You never know.
Courtney on point.
No,
I've got a new son-in-law now, so you never know. Listen, I got to say though, I do want to offer some congratulations to my daughter. She's 19. She got married a couple weeks ago. Her and Ivan, congratulations on the marriage, and they're both working really hard in college.
Congratulations.
Yeah. So it's definitely broke my heart though. You remember all the days that they're just running around, and now there's some other guy, that you're handing your daughter off to. So you got to do the handoff. Anyway, I'm getting a little sentimental here.
You really are.
You guys can't see Adam, but he's crying right now.
No, I'm not crying. I refuse to cry. I only cried a little bit at the wedding, and I kind of like hid, did the manly thing and turned my head away and stuff. So, but so back to this, I think the bottom line for all of this is you don't know if you don't ask, right? And it's such a touchy subject with a lot of people because let's face it, nobody wants to think about going in a nursing home or going in assisted living or when they're going to die, but getting it out of the way and knowing what's going to happen, it's almost like people that don't want to go to the doctor because they're afraid of what the doctor will tell them. Well, I always say, do you want to die? Like if it's there, it's there, right? The problem is there no matter what we want to do.
Some people just don't want to know, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, shout out to my mother.
The statistic is something like
Sue, go to the doctor, Sue.
70% of people will need some form of long-term care before they die.
So that's the actual number, 70%.
I think that's the latest and greatest. Yep.
Yeah.
So everyone's going to die. We know that. Everyone needs to talk to an estate planner about how to plan for that. But oftentimes you need an elder law attorney as well. Sometimes that's one and the same to plan for that. If you get sick before you die, that's much scarier to me than dying.
Oof.
There's one more thing I think that we should probably touch on. And Courtney, we talked about this, the VA benefits, aid, things like that. I know I just want to go just a little general here. We have a lot of people that we work with that have served in the military. Just wondering what your thoughts are on that.
So the VA, through something like VA Aid and Attendance, can provide some money to help pay for long-term care. You have to have 90 days of active duty, one of which being during a wartime. There's income and asset requirements.
How do they classify war, just out of curiosity?
It's federally mandated.
Okay, so
There's
like if
the
you were
date
in
range.
Kuwait or Iraq or...
Yep.
So it's not combat, it's war. Like it had to have been a time that was
period
war.
of wartime. You don't need to be boots on the ground.
Okay.
No.
But if they were in combat and it wasn't a war, then they're out of luck then. If there wasn't a war going on, but
If there was not a federally mandated time of war.
That's terrible. You know how many of our not boots on the ground, but even all of our service people that go out there and they're in combat that we don't even know about, wasn't a war going on, but now you're 80 years old and hey, we can't help you. That's kind of crappy. Anyway, go ahead. Yep. Sorry.
So there's that requirement. You have to have a discharge other than dishonorable. There's income and asset requirements. The VA uses a net test, though, unlike with Medicaid, where you can subtract out medical expenses and things like that. But that can provide some really great care.
As they should.
As
they should.
Absolutely.
It's
That's
just
great to know. I mean, proper planning with all of this is the key, right?
Right.
You want to plan ahead. You don't want to wait. We always tell people, you look back and you say, oh, I should have done this 5-10 years ago. And, now's the time, and you don't want to be one of those people. How do we say that, Adam?
I say it at the events. I say, there's two types of retirees, the ones who plan ahead and then the ones who look back and say, I wish I would have known that. That's really what it comes down to. And we've got too many, sorry guys, but we've got too many experts out there, right? too many people that are Googling and they're Google warriors. But, the real thing about this is if you haven't realized it by now, retirement isn't just about your investments. As a matter of fact, that's maybe a quarter of it, right? You can sit on the sidelines, most people, and not even be in the game anymore with the investments and still have the most beautiful life ever. But these are the things that, I always go back to Steve Jobs. You know how much I love Steve Jobs. And, the guy's got pancreatic cancer. He's on his deathbed, and he's the one that made comments like, none of that ever mattered now. Like, it's right here. We're going to die, and it's, we always have a good time till we get to that point, right? And then we're at that point. God help us. I know it's not fun to think about, but, if there was anything that could have been done, one more day, one more minute with the people you love, and you didn't take advantage of that just because you knew everything, you were good. And we always talk about it. It's the what you know that you don't know.
Right. There's the black swan.
The black swan. That's what we call it. Yeah. The story there, Courtney, if you don't know it, is Chris Voss has a group called the Black Swan Group. He used to be the hostage negotiator for the FBI, like the lead hostage negotiator. And he talks about the Black Swan as the areas that you can identify with somebody who's holding a a hostage, or, you have this black swan moment where they let that information out, what really happened, why they really did it, what the secret sauce is, whatever it might be. And it comes from this old thought that, back in the day, before the internet, before technology, people always saw white swans, and nobody had any idea that out there were black swans too, until they found it, right? So it's the same thing, if you're in retirement, what's your black swan? What's that thing that you didn't even know you didn't know? And this, for me, estate planning, advanced tax planning with the estate planning, because I know you can speak to that as well. If somebody enough to be dangerous about the tax implications, those are all the black swans of retirement that we don't even know that we don't want to know about, right? I mean, it's so important to just put the pride aside and, make sure that you're okay. And if you don't want to do it for yourself, just think about your family. Put the pride aside. Make sure your family's taken care of. I'm sure you've done this before, Courtney, where the best people that come in and talk to you are probably the ones that don't even really worry about themselves anymore. Is that fair to say? They're worried about their families and what the implications are?
Yeah, and a lot of times, so I'm generally meeting with the family of the sick person, and it's always nice when I meet with a family member who says, I just want to get my loved one the best care possible, rather than what I've heard many times, which is, this is my inheritance. I want to protect my inheritance.
Oh, my God.
You've heard that too many times.
Heartless.
Special road to hell for people like that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. It's crazy. The thing is, what I love about you, Courtney, is, it's very obvious that you love what you do. Just like what here with us, we love what we do. Yes, you're compensated. We're compensated. But the amount of money that we're compensated should reflect service. And there's so many times in our professions where that's missed. You're legitimately helping someone and you're providing a really good service. You could do it and not provide a good service. You could just say, hey, give me the money. Here you go.
All right, here you go.
Yeah, but the fact that all of us go out of our way to try to understand these questions and try to put ourselves in the shoes of the people that are coming in to see us. And I think for me, it's because I know that one day I'll be in those shoes. And I hope that there's somebody out there that will help me like I help people. I think that's, so just can't thank you enough for not just what you do, but the way that you do it, which is why we love you and we love the group over there.
And before we wrap up, Courtney, do you want to tell people how they can get in touch with you? Just for any information like that.
So I'm with the firm of Green, Schoenfeld & Kyle. If you know the Broadway Palm Dinner Theater, we're right behind there off of Colonial and McGregor. My phone number is 239-936-7200. Feel free to call me anytime. Send me an email. Happy to talk.
And I think we can help you too, because we do send people over to you. But if you are listening to the podcast and you've been on the fence about this, all you got to do is call Lauren, 239-771-8696. We'll get it all set up. If you are a family of ours already, we know enough about your situation and you want us to come with you, you want us to hold your hand a little bit, we can do that as well. Just let's get it taken care of. Let's get it done, off the list, and then we can sleep even better. I'm sure there's other things on your list that you're worried about, but this doesn't have to be one of them. Money, retirement, investments, estate planning, taxes, those do not have to be things that kind of keep you up. What should be keeping you up is whether you want to go on the river cruise through Europe or whether you want to go on it through another country, right? Those are the things that should be keeping you up.
I do want to touch on
Why are you
couple,
laughing? That's not funny.
I'm smiling at you.
Okay.
A couple upcoming events we're having. You can tell Adam and I spend way too much time together.
Way too much.
Some upcoming events for Evolution Retirement Services. We're having a lunch and learn with actually Kevin Kyle from Green, Schoenfeld & Kyle on March 5th.
Are you going to come by too, Courtney?
When is it?
You should come by
on
too.
March 5th at 11 a.m. We do about an hour at the Hilton Garden Inn right around the corner here. And, Kevin will speak for about 30 minutes. And then we have a nice buffet-style lunch afterwards. If that's something you're interested in, shoot me an email, info@evoretire.com, lauren@evoretire.com. We are also having a little pop-up, what I'm going to call Edible Insights. And that's going to be April 23rd.
What?
And that is with Tom Siamatis from AE,
from Advisors Excel.
Advisors Excel. We want our special families there to kind of, get a look into our back office, who we are talking to, how they help us. Also giving you the latest market updates for 2025. So those are two events we have coming up. If you're interested in coming to those, like I said, shoot me an email, give me a call. I'm going to be sending things out via email very shortly. And I
The
don't know.
coconut
Adam,
shrimp are fabulous.
Yes.
I love the
they
coconut
are.
shrimp.
The coconut shrimp.
Yeah, you got to
I
come
love
just for the coconut shrimp,
Yeah,
Courtney. It's
very
good stuff. And I just want to point out one last thing. It's really funny to me that whenever we're talking about the Hilton Garden Inn or the Broadway Palm, Lauren's pointing in the direction, but she's pointing in the wrong direction all the time. She's like, the arms are flying, and flailing around.
The Hilton is right here. Do you see my arm?
Now she's giving me a different gesture. Anyway.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. So the last thoughts here when we wrap up. Courtney, I'm going to give you the last word in a minute here, but there's going to be a fear and an uncomfortableness for trying to kind of tackle some of these topics, and rightfully so. You should be a little bit nervous because this is something you haven't had to deal with before. Why should people not be nervous, Courtney?
So my goal, I meet with families all the time who are not ready for Medicaid, who are not ready to go to a facility, but they want me to review their assets and their income and tell them about options for the future. I do that a lot. Come see me for that. I love to do it. I want you to feel better when you're leaving than you felt when you came in.
Yes, love that.
The single most important thing that every single person over the age of 18 needs is a good, durable power of attorney. Please do not get one off the internet. Get one from a good estate planning attorney. Get one from an elder law attorney.
Couldn't agree more.
That's what you need.
Couldn't agree more. We've seen it too many times where families don't have access to money or stepchildren or children, and then the stepmom was taking care of the healthcare directives, and it should have been the children, and the person that's in the bed didn't even know about that. So that's important stuff. I agree 100% with you. What a way to end that with the final thought there, Lauren.
Very nice.
Thank you very much, Courtney. The last thing I want to say, and I don't want to be aggressive when I say it, but during the season like this, when we meet all these new people, don't be a Google warrior. Don't think that you have all the answers, because you're not supposed to, and it's okay. So I want to challenge everybody who's listening to this. If you haven't talked about it with your spouses, talk about it. Talk about all these things, ask questions. We always challenge you to think differently about retirement and challenge what you've already heard, because nobody's going to care as much as you do and then as we do. So get some help out there. Make sure it's just like when you check your car insurance every year to make sure you have the lowest rates. I don't want to make that phone call either, but I do it, the homeowner's insurance, which is crazy right now, through the roof. Anyway, we go on and on about that, but people, take the necessary steps. Don't be afraid. It's okay to have a little bit of fear, but don't be afraid. You know what I like to say, Lauren? Who's my favorite guy? John Wayne. What was his favorite thing to say? Courage is being scared to death and saddling up anyway. Oh, you're okay. You're making the faces. Okay, Lauren's got the faces to make over there.
No, but I do want to throw in, make sure you subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with anybody who might benefit from this information. It's absolutely complimentary. Go to our website, taxfreefortmyers.com. Download Adam's book, They Lied, The Real Cost of Your Retirement, and download some episodes of the Retirement Evolved podcast with Adam Bruno, certified financial fiduciary,
and Lauren Trolson. You should have been first on that list, by the way. Anyway, you know what Lauren's saying too, and I think we should take some time to thank everybody, Lauren. The webcast has had, or the podcast has had, an outstanding amount of views and listens and all that fun stuff. We get comments that they want us to record it on like YouTube as well. They don't need to see all this behind the microphone, right?
A lot of man.
Yeah, it's a lot. Boy, you're going to pay for that one later. But we want to, seriously, with every ounce that we have, we want to thank you. And we love you all. Even if we haven't met some of you personally, I know that we get listens from all over the place now. And what's nice about that is we are an SEC registered investment advisory firm now. So even if you're listening to this in another state, we have the ability to help. Maybe not Courtney. You're licensed in multiple states, aren't you, Courtney? Or is it just Florida?
Florida
okay.
Florida.
All right. Yeah. So don't call Courtney unless you live in Florida, because she can't help you anyway. But just enjoy the podcast, and please understand that when we do this, we want what's best for you. We want what's best for retirement, and definitely contact us if you want. Don't be afraid. Even the last few weeks, it's been a while since we did another one because season hit us. They were just overwhelmed with questions. So I think Lauren and I are going to do one more podcast within the next week and just address some of those questions that we got. We haven't forgotten about you. We try to hit you back with the answers as much as we can. As far as bringing it on the air with us, it gets a little crazy around here. But enjoy the rest of your week, everybody. God bless. Take care of each other. Love on somebody that you don't usually love on. And God bless. Peace out, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Investment advisory services are offered through Evolution Wealth Management Incorporated, an investment advisor registered with the state of Florida. Registration does not imply any level of skill or training. Evolution Wealth Management's unique CRD number is 307644. You can obtain a copy of Evolution Wealth Management's firm brochure, Form ADV Part 2A, free of charge by visiting advisorinfo.sec.gov. Evolution Wealth Management offers investment advisory services only, where it is appropriately registered or exempt from registration, and only after clients have entered into an investment advisory agreement confirming the terms of engagement and have been provided a copy of the firm's ADV Part 2A. Insurance services are provided by Evolution Retirement Services. Any guarantees mentioned are backed by the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company and may be subject to restrictions, limitations, or early withdrawal fees, which vary by the issuer. They do not refer in any way to securities or investment advisory products. You should consider the charges, risks, expense, and investment objectives carefully before entering a contract. This material has been prepared for informational purposes only and should not be construed as a solicitation to effect or attempt to effect either transactions in securities or the rendering of personalized investment advice. This material is not intended to provide and should not be relied on for tax, legal, accounting, or other financial advice. Evolution Wealth Management and Evolution Retirement Services do not provide tax, legal, or accounting advice. You should consult your own tax, legal, and accounting advisors before engaging in any transaction. Evolution Wealth Management and Evolution Retirement Services are affiliated entities. Investment advisory services are offered through Evolution Wealth Management Incorporated, an investment advisor registered with the state of Florida. Registration does not imply any level of skill or training. Evolution Wealth Management's unique CRD number is 307644. You can obtain a copy of Evolution Wealth Management's firm brochure, Form ADV Part 2A, free of charge by visiting advisorinfo.sec.gov. Evolution Wealth Management offers investment advisory services only, where it is appropriately registered or exempt from registration, and only after clients have entered into an investment advisory agreement confirming the terms of engagement and have been provided a copy of the firm's ADV Part 2A. Insurance services are provided by Evolution Retirement Services. Any guarantees mentioned are backed by the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company and may be subject to restrictions, limitations, or early withdrawal fees, which vary by the issuer. They do not refer in any way to securities or investment advisory products. You should consider the charges, risks, expense, and investment objectives carefully before entering a contract. This material has been prepared for informational purposes only and should not be construed as a solicitation to effect or attempt to effect either transactions in securities or the rendering of personalized investment advice. This material is not intended to provide and should not be relied on for tax, legal, accounting, or other financial advice. Evolution Wealth Management and Evolution Retirement Services do not provide tax, legal, or accounting advice. You should consult your own tax, legal, and accounting advisors before engaging in any transaction. Evolution Wealth Management and Evolution Retirement Services are affiliated entities.